We'll move on to the biggest news of the week. I mean, for me, in the Steelers world anyway, or maybe in the NFL world as well. Do you think that's fair? And that was Justin Fields, the quarterback for the Chicago Bears, getting traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 2025 sixth-round pick that could become a fourth-round pick pending playing time that he gets. It's a player that we've talked a lot about during this free agency period, Adam. And it's a player that we all quite admire, I think, and also want to see him play. I mean, firstly, what was your initial reaction to this trade to begin with?
That the Bears have ballsed it up again was my initial reaction to the trade. They've given him away for a bag of peanuts. I thought the Steelers have done really well with this trade. There's no way of getting around it. It's a very good trade for the Steelers. The Bears have screwed it up. They should have traded him before free agency started. That was where their ability was. They came out and said that they wanted to do a pro day, was it, at their place with Caleb Williams? Because he didn't do a medical or do any of the combines, so they wanted to do that so they could be 100% sure on him, because for some reason they weren't 100% sure on him at the time. Now apparently they are 100% sure on him, despite the fact that hasn't happened. And they've ballsed it up. So that was my initial thought. I think the Steelers have done really well to get a guy for next to nothing. I mean, it really is nothing. And that quarterback room now, you've got two quarterbacks probably costing you $5 million this year. The Vikings have just signed Sam Darnold to a 1-year deal for $10 million. So I'd say you've done pretty well.
Well, that's what I was going to move on with, Johnny. I mean, last year, the Steelers quarterback room, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, all three of them not at the Steelers anymore, because as that happened with Justin Fields being traded to the Steelers, Kenny Pickett was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles as well. So we have a quarterback room in the Pittsburgh Steelers of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields now. Adam said the Steelers have done really well. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree with Adam. I think the Steelers have got themselves, two steals essentially in terms of
very funny.
That wasn't even intentional. Adam's nice little joke there, but obviously their room has massively improved. Perhaps obviously Justin Fields isn't the complete package yet. I think unfortunately he was set up to fail as soon as he was drafted by the Bears. A poor team that's he's thrown straight into the deep end. Was looking back at some of the tape of his first game where he was sacked 9 times by the Browns. They had such a poor team for a year, and he's coming into a franchise which has all the tools, I think, except for the quarterback. What happens this year, I don't know. Obviously, Wilson seems to be the all signs point towards him being the starter. But if obviously you don't want to say this, but if he gets injured or he's not playing too well, there's a real opportunity for Fields behind a decent line. Maybe need to sort out a couple more weapons for him, but I think it's a much more stable environment because he's coming into a team that has been consistently successful without having that guy at quarterback. So real win for both the team and the player. I think it's a perfect landing spot for Fields.
I would say the biggest fan of Justin Fields on this podcast is Andrew, given his Ohio State roots. How buzzed are you for him about this? Because you have never waived confidence in him at all at any point. I don't think you've always said that he is way better than people are giving him credit for. It's this team is poor. It's not all the best fault. Yes, there is elements of his game that he can improve on, but the cream will rise to the top with Justin Fields eventually. Do you think we're going to see that now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an odd one for me. Like you said, I do believe in him, and I think he has got the ability and attributes to become a very good player. I'm finding it a bit of an odd move for him, just on the fact that it is a defensive-minded head coach, and I thought maybe he'd want to land in a team that maybe had an offensive coach to develop him and move him to the next level. I know maybe we could say maybe Russell Wilson's there to mentor him and pull him on forwards, but it's a great opportunity for him. And I can't help but think that maybe he chose the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I'm struggling to get on board with the concept of the Giants, the Seahawks, the Commanders didn't have a 6th round pick for Justin Fields. I mean, come on. So I think there might be something in there that the Bears have said to him, we're going to move on for you. We really like you. We weren't move on from you. Where do you want to go? And that kind of maybe where this has come from. And he's picked to go there. So it's a really good opportunity, as we said, for them. And it's such great business from the Steelers in terms of the fact that if it wasn't working out quite quickly for Wilson, I think the fans would be on him, and you've now got a backup plan. I mean, you've got, like we've said from the start of this, you've gone from having 3 quarterbacks that were probably average backups to having a starter and probably the best backup in the league currently now. So that's great. And as Adam said, Omar Khan's just got Chicago's number, hasn't he? With the trade that he's made with Chicago. So, yeah, as I said, I think it's a great opportunity, but an odd choice, I believe, for him. I would have thought maybe he'd want to, go and have a year with McVay or Shanahan or something like that as a backup, because this looks like a backup role to start off with. So if that was the case, then maybe you want to do a year with them and see if you could improve slightly, because I don't think Tomlin's going to help him in that aspect.
Like I said, Johnny, there was a bit of a fallout of this as well, and that's Kenny Pickett got traded to the Eagles. Now, I can't remember what they traded him for now off the top of my head. He goes to go and back up Jalen Hurts. Was he given an unfair shake in Pittsburgh, or do you think he should have been kept around, even though, you'd have had Wilson, Fields and Pickett? Where does he, where does he sit on that ladder? Probably at the bottom. And also in the max, it's sort of come out that he wasn't exactly graceful about going.
Yeah, I think it sounds like there's a bit of bad blood, and I think the Steelers had to move on from the old this year. Obviously, signing Wilson, that's the deal to trade Pickett came afterwards, but there's just something I think particularly in the last year, we know how inconsistent Pickett was. Obviously, injuries haven't helped him, but I don't think he's made anywhere near the progress that the Steelers wanted. He was at a bit of a gamble at the time. From what I can remember drafting him in the first round. It wasn't, he wasn't compared. He was obviously the first quarterback selected that year, but wasn't a dead cert to translate into the NFL. A lot of noise around him. He's been unlucky, but I think the Steelers have made probably the business the best business decision for them. For Kenny Pickett, it's just about staying in the league, I think, at this point, unfortunately. So to go to the Eagles, where again he may get a chance if he gets lucky and something happens, but unfortunately I can't see him being around for too much longer. I'm afraid it's just hasn't quite clicked, unfortunately, his NFL career so far.
And of course, the door, Adam, as you referred earlier to, will swing wide open here for Caleb Williams, USC quarterback, that with the Chicago Bears having the number 1 pick. It is heavily rumored and really mostly incredibly likely that they are going to take Williams, barring anything. I know it's hard to predict the NFL, but is this something that the Bears are going to look back on now and look with fondness that they've got into this position? Is it, how are the optics going to look at this in 2 years' time? Because the same, that theoretically, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it could certainly happen that they're in the exact same situation in 3 years' time. It could happen.
Yeah, I mean, look at the 21 QB class. I mean, now you go through that, and there was so much promise from that. I think that there's Caleb Williams is clearly a very promising quarterback, and it would be almost shocking if he didn't excel in the NFL. That doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to be the best quarterback in the league, but it would be surprising if he didn't do very well for him. So I think in a couple of years' time, they will be probably feeling that they made the right move. I'd be surprised if they didn't, if for no other reason than it kind of resets the quarterback contract, it gives them more time,
more money as well.
Yeah, exactly. More money that they can spend at the moment for positions around him. So it kind of makes sense for them to be able to really go out and give themselves a good shot at it. I think the only thing that you can be concerned about personally, what I think, is that you've got a rookie quarterback going to a defensive head coach, and that is a concern, and we are starting to see that as an issue now. It's like that is starting to come up, and the problem is in 2 years' time he might have an OC, but the problem is if he does well, chances are that OC ain't going to be there in 2 years' time because he's going to have a head coaching job somewhere else, and that is an issue that may come up. And so I think that's the only real concern. But yeah, I think for whatever reason it just hasn't really worked out with Fields, has it? At the time, I think timing was a big issue. I think the previous GM kind of bungled it a little bit. That just didn't really work. It kind of, that was the main issue for them, I feel. And even going into this new one, I feel like there's the potential for it to go wrong again with the head coach, who arguably could have got the sack at the end of last season. So there are issues there. It's not going to be plain sailing, I don't think, but I think in a couple of years' time, they'll probably look at it and go, we've got a better quarterback than what we had before.
You can argue that Williams is going to a situation that we don't usually see. You know, the first pick and the first quarterback usually goes to the worst team in the NFL. And this isn't the case this time. This isn't the Bears' first pick. This is the Panthers, who are the worst team probably to pick. So he's going to a situation where once Montez Sweat was there, didn't they have the last back end of the season? They had a winning record. Their defense was the top 10 defense. They've got they've brought in Keenan Allen now. DJ Moore's there. DeAndre Swift was finished in the top 5 of the running backs, I think, as well. Their O-line was decent as well. So he's landing in a situation that isn't massively dysfunctional. They weren't the worst team. They're actually a good team. And I think he's got a chance in his first year, maybe get into the playoffs with this team. Because maybe you could say, Adam, you're probably one for this, that looking at the defense that the Bears have got, you could say they might have the best defense in their division.
Well, I mean, you're lying, but yeah, I mean, if you want to say it, you can, I suppose. How dare you come out and say such slander? No, I mean, in all seriousness, I think that the Packers defense is decent, but it wasn't the back end of last year. The Bears defense really turned up, and I think if they can continue that and improve that, then I think you'll probably see that they will have a very strong defense. Certainly better than the Lions defense last year that you could score quite easily over top of, and the Vikings defense wasn't much to talk about either. So I think because of that, they do have the potential certainly to be a very good defense. Like you say, got some great weapons. I don't think they've got a particularly great running back. Myself, I'm not overly sold on Swift, so I do think there's a weakness there. But you could go out and get yourself another one if they really wanted to. But I mean, I think they like the draft. They don't have loads of draft capital, I don't think, once you get past the first couple of rounds. So I think they just need to bring in the right players to improve them, and that might be enough, especially on the defense. But yeah, I mean, they've got every opportunity now.
I think ultimately it's such a better scenario, Williams coming in, than it was ever for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And that's I think ultimately why they've made, I think it is the right call to move on from Fields. And I think the majority of people agree with that. It's, starting afresh with such a better team around him is just going to, help the quarterback and help the Bells, I think, win sooner rather than later.
It'll be certainly interesting to see if the defense can beat everybody in the NFC North this year, as Andrew has now predicted or suggested, maybe, much to Adam's dismay.